In today's news, CDC places BVI on level 3 COVID-19 travel warning list.
BVI reports 70% COVID-19 cases through contact tracing. Aubrey Daniel charged with illegal entry. All this and more when 284 News returns.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Welcome everybody, a pleasant evening to you. We're coming to you live and direct from Nature's Little Secrets in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. Today is Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. I'm Ron Grant.
And I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes. Another beautiful evening here in the BVI. Ron, outside is a bit quiet right now. As we know, the curfew started today. The 1 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew actually started today. So everyone is indoors, and we're hoping that you are watching 284 News right now because, of course, we have lots to get into. But before we get into this newscast, Ron, if we can really track back, last year, exactly 1 year later, today is actually the day that Hurricane Dorian devastated the Bahamas. And if we remember that, we remember the images coming out of the Bahamas. Dorian really did a number on the Bahamas down there. Some of our electricians even went down there to help restore power. But the thing is, Ron, 1 year later, but we definitely understand where the Bahamas is at right now as they deal with COVID-19. Imagine being hit and devastated by a major hurricane and just trying to get yourself back together. And here you are grappling with COVID-19. Of course, we are going through the same thing as we are still trying to recover from Hurricane Irma. But unfortunately, the Bahamas, even more so being hit 1 year ago, is really going through it. And we definitely want to keep them in their prayers, although 1 year later still has much work to do.
Most definitely, Kyle, and of course, this is going to be the third anniversary of Hurricanes Irma and Maria come this September, which we're already in the month of September, as well as over in Louisiana, Katrina. It's 15 years since that hurricane devastated the United States. So we definitely in the season, and as you said, we're battling with both a global pandemic and the hurricane season. But we don't want to be scared. We just want to be mindful and remember how far we've come and just how far we have to go.
Most definitely.
Beginning on the local scene, viewers, Minister for Health and Social Development, the Honorable Carvin Malone, through a Government Information Services released, has warned that medical terms and public health professionals have emphasized that failure to take decisive actions towards COVID-19 will lead towards an epidemic in the territory of the Virgin Islands. Honorable Malone explained that since the discovery of case number 12 on August 17th, health teams have garnered and investigated 219 primary and, of course, secondary contacts that are interlinked and are the cause of these small clustered cases. Now, the Minister for Health disclosed that cases have been disclosed on Tortola in the areas of Humptom's Gut, Lower Estate, Longbush, King Garden Bay, Hannah's, Purcell Estate, Fat Hogs Bay, Seacows Bay, Lambert's Estate, and, of course, the capital, Roe Town, with primary and secondary contacts further dispersed throughout other communities on the eastern side and the central districts on the islands of Anegada. Now, Honorable Malone also highlighted, Kala, that 32% of the case contacts recently confirmed as COVID-19 positive did not display any symptoms of the virus at all. He said, and I quote, "We believe that we are seeing the tip of the iceberg, and there are more persons possibly infected in the population who are asymptomatic and can readily spread the disease, which means that they may have many undocumented cases of who are transmitting the virus." The Minister of Health also added, while we do not exactly know how much spread is caused by the asymptomatic group, current estimates place our undocumented cases of approximately, hear this, 1,000 482 persons at a minimum. This is by the Minister of Health when it comes to possible undocumented cases, as he said. Now, Health Minister Malone further stated that restricting movement of residents for the next 14 days will provide the chances of containing the outbreak and avoid a scenario of community spread. He also, of course, encourages Kyla to boost persons to boost their physical and mental health through good nutrition, physical fitness, which is paramount when you're at home not doing much, stress management, which is very important. We want to find healthy mechanisms of coping with all that's taking place. Now, the British Virgin Islands epidemiological summary as of September 1st includes 3,217 total persons tested, 3,227 total persons tested, 2,965 tested negative, 47 total recovered positive cases, 38 presently active, 8 recoveries, 1 death, and 15 pending results. Now, persons, of course, who are experiencing symptoms are asked to please contact the hotline. The symptoms include fever, cough, headache, fatigue, loss of taste or smell, sore throat, and that number is 852-7650. That's, again, 852-7650.
Ron, it is a lot to take in as our health professionals are saying that this could potentially be an epidemic here in the British Virgin Islands, and we definitely need to take this very seriously as we sit in our homes under curfew. Of course, it is very uncomfortable, but we need to understand where we are at as we are in the manage it stage here in the British Virgin Islands, and I'm definitely going to get a little bit more into that. But before we get into that, news coming out of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which we know as the CDC, has issued a warning against travel to the British Virgin Islands during this time. Now, the CDC's risk assessment of the BVI classified the territory as having level 3 COVID-19 transmission status, which means the risk of contracting the virus in this territory is high, and currently new cases are increasing. The warning states that the territory's resources may be limited to handling severe illnesses caused by COVID-19. Now, on the CDC's website, including in its key points, the agency recommended travelers to avoid all non-essential international travel to the British Virgin Islands. Travelers at increased risk for severe illnesses from COVID-19 should consider postponing all travel, including essential travel, to the British Virgin Islands. And this is right there on the website for the CDC. And it further said, and I quote, that COVID-19 risk in the British Virgin Islands is high. Over the last 14 days, new cases of COVID-19 in the British Virgin Islands increased. CDC recommends travelers to avoid all non-essential travel to the British Virgin Islands. Now, some examples of essential travel may include traveling for humanitarian aid work, medical reasons, or family emergencies, end quote. The CDC also informed travelers that the current policy in the territory may include being tested and quarantined for 14 days because of the virus. And that says, and I quote, if you test positive on arrival, you may be required to isolate for a period of time. You may even be prevented from returning to the United States as scheduled. If you get exposed to a person with COVID-19 while abroad, you may be quarantined or not be permitted to return to the United States until 14 days after your last exposure, it stated. Now, Ron, as our territory discussed the reopening of borders to tourists and visitors, this is definitely a roadblock. And as we can see in that notice where the CDC is basically saying that if an outbreak had to happen in the territory, that the resources that we have might not be able to sustain that. And I think that's what our leaders have been trying to say for a very long time. But here we see on the international stage, we are now at level 3,
yes, indeed,
where before we were on some lists where we could travel without even quarantine. So this is definitely where we are at right now.
Kyla, one of the things that I want to highlight, because once this story, of course, broke, many residents were concerned as to what exactly these standards for CDC are. And I wanted to highlight that they have the level 3 high risk, level 2 moderate risk, and level 1 low risk, or the THN, which is very low risk. Now, the map also includes viewers and defines destinations where we cannot make risk determination, where there's no data available. So we definitely
Right.
fall within that category. One of the things that we've seen, Kyla, as we look at COVID-19 very close across our region as well internationally, is we see where it continues again to be a very fluid situation. And once persons and territories kind of think that they're in the clear, sometimes it changes, and we're seeing that here in the territory. But as disappointing as it is, as we deal with this influx, we're definitely looking at it and monitoring how other territories have dealt with this pandemic.
Most definitely.
Now, viewers, still ahead, Rowtown and East End police stations reopen, and Aubrey Daniel charged with illegal entry. We have all the details of that story and so much more after a word from our sponsors. You're watching 284 News.
Is business slow? Cash flow down? Hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media at cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
Viewers, welcome back. You're watching 284 News. Now, continuing on the local scene, the public of the Virgin Islands is advised that both the Rowtown and East End police stations have been reopened to the general public. Now, the closure was, of course, as a result of several law enforcement officers within the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force testing positive for COVID-19 while standing on the front line to protect residents of the Virgin Islands. This was confirmed by a joint statement released by His Excellency, the Governor Augustus J.U. Jasper, and Minister of Health and Social Development, the Honorable Carvin Malone. Now, the public statement said, and I quote, "As a result of the contact tracing, members of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force are being screened for the virus that causes COVID-19, and a small number of officers have tested positive. These officers have been removed from service and will remain in isolation until fully recovered." Now, in order to minimize the contact of COVID-19 amongst officers and residents, the East and Longlook and Rowtown police stations were temporarily closed for deep cleaning and disinfection. However, other police resources have been put in place to ensure adequate coverage to, of course, protect those communities, to enforce the curfew and maintain general law and order. Now, despite the facilities being reopened, persons are still encouraged, of course, where possible, to call in reports and avoid visiting any of these stations unless the situation is an emergency. Of course, Kyla, we're happy to hear that many of our officers are seemingly doing well on the recovery scene. They're isolated with their families. We continue to wish them the very best of health. They, like many of our essential workers, as well as you and I, are continuously out and about interacting with the general public because we have to, and putting ourselves at risk, but we want to continue to wish each other the very best of health.
Most definitely, Ron. Ron, I think that is why we continue to push the message of persons calling the hotline if having any symptoms, because you want to make sure that this is dealt with in the right way. Of course, we don't know the circumstances surrounding these police officers contracting the virus, but we do want to make sure that our frontline staff and immediate persons are kept safe. And we even spoke a little bit yesterday about what about testing for essential workers on a regular basis. Now we're hearing about the spit test. So these are things that we can definitely look into because, as we know, essential workers are always back and forth and interacting with persons on a regular basis.
Yes. Now continuing on, one male has been arrested and charged after officers of the Royal Virgin Islands Police Force were alerted to his alleged illegal entry into the territory of the Virgin Islands by a concerned member of the public on August 31st at about 8 o'clock a.m. Now, BVI lender Aubrey Daniel, 59 of Duff's Bottom, has been charged with illegal entry. He remains in police custody pending his appearance in the magistrate's court on Wednesday, which was today. He was scheduled to be in court, and we're going to be awaiting the details of that. As soon as we get it, we're going to share with you. Continuing on, Kyla, definitely fighting the battle against, not only smuggling but illegal entry. Here we see in a case by one of our very own locals.
Most definitely. Ron, as we move on now, as I was speaking about a bit earlier about being in the manage it stage here in the territory. Now, as we have entered into this new curfew order, the territory is now in the manage it stage, the orange alert phase of the territory's COVID-19 pandemic response. Now, some phases before this phase, the management phase, were the plan for it stage, which we saw in the very beginning as our government invested in the territory's COVID-19 response. The government invested millions into facilities, test kits, etc. in a preparation for the novel coronavirus. Then we see where we went into the keep it out stage, which is primarily was simply to decrease the risk and the possibility of a regional outbreak here in the territory. Then there was the stamp it out phase. This phase is when the first case and a few clusters were detected in the territory, and the government tried their best to eradicate the virus from our shores through 24-hour lockdown and other stringent measures. And for a few months, Ron, we can definitely see where the territory actually stamped out the virus. But we've seen a spike recently, and the BVI government have now transitioned into the manage it phase. Honorable Carvin Malone, he speak about the main objective of this phase. Viewers, let's take a look.
In the absence of a strategy that would completely eradicate the virus from our shores, we have transitioned to the manage it orange alert phase of our pandemic response. The main objective of this phase is to minimize active transmission in the territory, as well as the negative physical, psychological, social, and economic impacts.
Now, viewers, we see where Honorable Malone explained the main focus of this phase is to minimize the active transmission here in the territory. Honorable Malone went on to further explain the 4 steps in which the territory can execute this. Now, let's take a look.
World Health Organization, this calls for 4 essential commitments. First, prevent amplifying events. COVID-19 spreads very efficiently in crowds and places where people gather, particularly in closed spaces where ventilation is poor. We know that by limiting large gatherings and encouraging residents to practice physical distancing and wearing face masks, we will limit the virus's ability to spread. We must therefore challenge ourselves to find creative ways to hold events while minimizing risks. Second, reduce deaths by protecting vulnerable groups, including elderly persons, those with underlying conditions, and essential workers. By protecting those who are most at risk, we can save lives, prevent people becoming severely ill, and avoid overwhelming our health systems. Third, individuals must play their part by taking measures to protect themselves and others. Stay at least 6 feet apart from others. Clean your hands regularly. Practice respiratory etiquette and wear a face mask. And fourth, we must accelerate our efforts to find, isolate, test, and care for cases, then trace and quarantine contacts. By remaining at home as much as possible over the next 14 days and sharing any helpful information, you can greatly assist us in these efforts. The Ministry of Health and Social Development remains committed to supporting every sector and each of our islands to reopen as safely as possible.
Now, viewers, I hope that you paid attention to the 4 essential steps that the Minister of Health outlined, because the government truly believes that these steps can assist the BVI in effectively combating the COVID-19 virus once all parties play their part. And Ron, I think we are at an essential crossroad as we try to get a grip on the novel coronavirus here in the territory.
And Kyla, as you said, it's definitely a crossroad, but it's definitely one that's not going to be, unfortunately, painstaking. We've already seen the effects of the global pandemic that is COVID-19 here in the territory, both on the health aspect as well as the economy, and that's a conversation that we continue to have. So we definitely want to brace ourselves, and we want to be positive and make the right choices as a territory.
Most definitely. Now, viewers, we have so much more for you. The CDC halts eviction of renters in the U.S. for the remaining of 2020, and U.S. Marshals find 39 missing children in Georgia during a 2-week lockdown. So much more, so stay tuned. This is 284 News.
Father Jesus, that line here long like church service.
Alright, do enjoy the rest of it then. Next customer in line, please. Wait, hold on a second.
Yes, Sonny boy, come, yes, Sonny.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sonny boy. Hold on there. You must have cut front of people.
It's okay, I'll take care of it.
What? No man to take care of me.
How may I assist you?
Yes.
You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top up or?
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, I definitely want to dive into this next story, as it even relates to here in the BVI somewhat, as we have been having these sorts of conversations. Now, reports from various news outlets confirm that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which we said earlier, CDC, on Tuesday issued a far-reaching order which halts millions of residential renters from being evicted for the remaining of 2020. Now, CDC says this move is aimed at combating the novel coronavirus. The expansive action covers all of the U.S.'s 43 million renters who fall in the scope of this order. The halt on evictions also covers states and territories, including the U.S. Virgin Islands, according to the order. Now, the order covers renters who are not expected to earn more than $99,000 in 2020 or $198,000 for persons who file jointly. Now, if you received a stimulus check earlier this year or did not file in 2019, the order still applies to you, according to the CDC. Renters must also demonstrate that they have sought assistance to make rent payments, and most affirmatively declare that they are unable to meet rent payments because of hardships caused by COVID-19. Additionally, renters must express that they would likely become homeless if they are evicted, and the Trump administration said that renters could face jail time if they lie in their declarations. Now, according to the New York Times, an administration official told reporters the order was not an invitation to stop paying rent, and said renters should pay a portion of the rent if possible. Renters will still owe accrued rent and face penalties for failing to pay. The administration officials told the reporters, according to the Times. Now, the CDC order says renters could be evicted for other reasons other than not paying rent or making a housing payment. In July, Americans owed more than $21.5 billion in past due rent, estimated by a global advisory firm. Now, over in the USVI, the last local action on rent by Governor Albert Bryan came on July 27th when he announced a 1-month moratorium with the conditions. At the time, the extension was for tenants who were making a good faith effort to pay their rent and were less than 60 days behind in payments. Now, Ron, I think this story is very important because we've been hearing a lot of complaints and conversations about renters here in the territory.
Yeah, one of the things, Carla, that brings us to is really and essentially this is not just a BVI problem. This is not just a St. Thomas and St. Croix or USVI problem. This is a regional and international problem. The health crisis that is COVID-19 has impacted a lot of our works of receiving an income. It's affected education, and most importantly, it's really threatening livelihood to the point of persons being able to possibly have a roof over their head. And we see this more and more as it pertains to the U.S. And it's a story that we're going to be watching closely. But I think ultimately it brings into position and to really the scope of the severity of this problem. There are a lot of persons and their families, both residential and of course we have to look at commercial spaces too, with businesses that are at stake of not only being evicted but really facing a difficult time and essentially closing their doors, whether it be temporary or permanently.
Most definitely.
All right, now continuing on the international scene, a very daunting story. Authorities have found 39 missing children in Georgia during a 2-week effort to rescue endangered minors. The U.S. Marshals Service Missing Child Unit led the search, dubbed Operation Not Forgotten, in collaboration with the agency's Southeast Regional Fugitive Task Force. Now, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and state and local agencies. The operation resulted in the rescue of 26 children and safe location of 39 others, U.S. Marshals said in a news release this week. Now, they said, and I quote, "The U.S. Marshals Service is fully committed to assisting federal, state, and local agencies with locating and recovering endangered missing children." In addition to their primary fugitive apprehension mission, U.S. Marshals Service Director Donald Washington said in a statement, "The message to missing children and their families is that we will not or never stop, looking for you." Again, the director said, "The message to missing children and their families is that we will never stop looking for you." During the operation, authorities arrested 9 people, cleared 26 warrants, and filed additional charges for alleged crimes relating to sex trafficking, parental kidnapping, registered sex offender violations, drug and weapons possession, and custodial interference, U.S. Marshals said. Now, some of the rescued children were believed to have been victims of child sex trafficking, child exploitation, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and a medical or mental health condition. Others were missing and located at the request of law enforcement to make sure they weren't in danger. Now, the children range from ages, hear this, 3 to 17, as young as 3 and as old as 17, Washington said at a news conference. The rescue was the most at-risk and challenging recovery case in that area. Every 40 seconds, a child goes missing in the United States, according to the total of 765,000 missing children a year, according to the FBI, since U.S. Marshals partnered with the NCMEC in 2005. The agency has recovered about 1,800 missing children. Now, Kyla, a very devastating story coming out of the U.S. internationally, but also a very, for some, a very good story because they have closure. And when I say good, I mean that there is some end to it. Children have been returned to their families and their parents, and for that we're eternally grateful. But we see where this conversation and this story, we talk about illegal immigrants and smuggling here in the Virgin Islands because it's been a conversation piece. But we have to understand that this, again, is not just a Tortola issue. It's not just a U.S. Virgin Islands issue. It's a global problem. And we see where in these particular times, cases are, particularly being closed on. And in this particular story, we see where 39 missing children were recovered.
As you said, it's great that 39 children were recovered, but it really was heartbreaking to hear from 3 to 17. As young as 3 years old, kids are going missing. But we're glad for this small win here in the entire world. But viewers, that is it for today's news roundup. Be sure to like us on Facebook at 284 Media and 284 BVI on Instagram as well as Twitter. I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
And I'm Ron Grant. We will see you again tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and of course, international content. We're 284 News, your source for honest and impartial news right here on 284 Media in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.